Team Modi 2.0 is here, and more than 2 years after he took over as Prime Minister, this is, yes, the second rejig, but really the more significant one. It's a big expansion. It's a huge sarkar really right now. 18 new faces have been added, and of course, what was once a lean, mean machine, one minister, and that's Prakash Javadekar, has been promoted. While the government has insisted that the changes will depend on the performance of each ministry, political equations, power politics, polls, caste, and all of those really have been decisive factors. We've got a very eminent panel to discuss all of that and a lot more right here on ET now. Swaminathan Aiyar, our consulting editor, joins us live on the show this evening. We've got Yogendra Yadav, we've got Dilip Padgaonkar, and we also have Lord Meghnad Desai. Thanks each one of you for being with us. Swami, I'm going to begin with you. This is a big sarkar. Modi has expanded his cabinet. The strength is now to 78 against a number of 82 that it can really go up to. What do you make of the big changes that we've at least seen today? The kind of induction that has happened. Only one man promoted, and unlike what everybody speculated, it isn't either Piyush Goyal or Dharmendra Pradhan. It is actually Prakash Javadekar. What are you making of the big changes?
Okay, I think the first thing is it's not a big change. It's a very small change. There was a lot of speculation on big switches around, changes of portfolios, reshuffles. It's not a reshuffle at all, right? This is an expansion. Modi started off by saying, you know, I'm going to have a lean and mean government. It's now fat. Maybe it's as mean as ever, but it's certainly not lean and mean. It's fat and mean, or some people say fat and round. The idea that he was going to shrink the size of government, he's going to shrink and streamline the entire system, none of that is happening. So he's shown as more of the status quo man than ever. As far as the individuals are concerned, it's clear that it's politics first. People being selected on the basis of which state do you represent, which community do you represent. These things, frankly, are very minor. You cannot win elections this way. It is held to be an appropriate thing to do, to send signals. But the sending of signals is a very small part of winning the elections. There is no doubt that he has his mind on politics. Modi has his mind on the UP election. This by itself is not going to do it. It's just a small internal exercise. I note that only Javdekar has been promoted. Some people had expected some more promotions. But it does show that Modi is taking a view that on the one hand, there is no real change. On the other hand, he is not giving a large number of awards to show that people have done very well. So he doesn't seem particularly happy or satisfied with the team, yet not so dissatisfied that he wants to make a reshuffle. On the whole, the big surprise is that there is no big surprise. It's a kind of status quo thing with an expansion to accommodate certain political compulsions.
Fair point indeed. Political compulsions have driven this expansion, like Swami is pointing out there. No big changes, no big surprises. Yogendra Yadav, your quick first impressions on what has really happened today. Yes, it is not a lean, mean machine anymore. It's a huge cabinet, 78 to be precise. Team 2.0, Modi 2.0. Your first impressions?
I don't know why it's being called 2A or anything, because there is really not much of a difference. I mean, there isn't difference at all. It's just numbers. We've added numbers. Some people are discussing states, some people are discussing caste and communities, but do we have a new vision? Do we have any new signal about the policies the government is going to take? Do we have any signal about new kinds of energies, new kinds of vision, policy direction? Honestly, I find none. So whatever opinion you had about Mr. Modi's cabinet yesterday evening, your opinion will remain ditto the same.
I don't know why you say it's not there, because the team Modi wants us to believe it's energy, expertise and experience that has driven this expansion. But I will take it across to Meghnad Desai before I bring it across to Dilip Padgaonkar. Meghnad Desai, what is your takeaway from this cabinet expansion? And like there are two arguments being made here. Yogendra Yadav believes, why is it being called Team 2.0? This is just about numbers being added. And Swami also essentially pointing out no big surprises there. The surprise is that there are no big surprises. You've just added numbers due to political compulsions. Meghnad Desai.
Well, it's not actually a reshuffle. It is an expansion. And it is an expansion with an eye on UP elections. It is I mean, there is no reason why one should say that the government has been reconstructed. Nobody has been moved at the top. So obviously the Prime Minister must be highly satisfied with all the performances, which I find surprising. But then, the UP elections are coming, so the Dalit vote and, all the kind of minority votes have to be looked after. So we have these promotions. See, my feeling is that if I was an Indian taxpayer, I would ask, what do we get out of all these ministers? Why are there so many ministers? What do they do? What does the government cost the taxpayer?
Hold your thoughts there, because I do want to take this across to Dilip Padgaonkar. And Mr. Padgaonkar, you've heard patiently the three speakers before you. No big surprises is the big surprise. Political equations have driven this, and it seems that Prime Minister Modi is largely satisfied with his cabinet, and which is why there isn't a rejig, there isn't a restructuring. Do you agree with the three arguments being made there?
Well, to a large extent, I do agree with the other members who've spoken. I'd make three broad remarks. First is to quote from a friend saying, the more things change, the more they remain the same, because what we've just seen today is, in fact, something that the Congress has been practicing for a long time, namely to engage in the social engineering of the Union Cabinet, largely for electoral politics. And if you take a look at the kind of members who've been inducted into the cabinet, you'd see that, of course, the attempt is to make sure that the upcoming polls in various states have been kept in mind. UP is a primary example. You've got one minister who is a Kurmi, another one who is a Dalit, and a third who's a Brahmin. And I can go down the list to tell you exactly something similar has happened also in Gujarat, where you've got two Patels, one a Kadwa Patel, one a Lewa Patel, and so on and so forth. And there again, in Gujarat, you had one minister who is a tribal, an ST. So my first comment is, the more things change, the more they remain the same. My second comment is that Modi has, in fact, let's not forget, dropped 5 ministers. And therefore, when he says that, I need performers, I need doers, I need those who can deliver, I think to that extent, the fact that he's shown his unhappiness about some ministers has to be taken into account. My third remark is that there is a pointed snub to the Shiv Sena, which had expected one cabinet post and another MOS post. They haven't obviously got that. And this, I think, will almost certainly lead to more tensions between the Shiv Sena and the BJP in Maharashtra, given the fact that the corporation elections are ahead. The other interesting thing, and that's my last comment in a broad sense, is that I haven't really gone into the details of the backgrounds of the people, but my impression is that there are very, very few who really come from the RSS Pracharak background. Yes, many of them have been associated with the BJP, been part of the BJP, etc. And interestingly, I think overall, in terms of their educational qualifications, in terms of their legislative experience, many of them have been in the field working at the state level, and therefore they do come also with a very good educational and political background. Some of them, of course, have been ministers in previous state governments, particularly in Gujarat. And the person from Karnataka who's been inducted, he again was a minister earlier, and so on and so forth. So these, I think, are broadly, but in the end, I think I agree with the others.
Right.
The more things change, the more they seem to remain the same.
Swami, come in on that. The more things change, the more they remain the same. But the larger question also is, this seems to be Modi's hand-picked team this time around. Team 2.0 is Modi's hand-picked team. These are people that he wants to groom for 2019. He is betting outside of Lutyens Delhi for all of that. Is that a fair assessment?
It could be. As you know, I think we are reading too much into a rather minor event. Some people are hoping this would be a major event. Actually, it's a minor event. When you say what are the implications for 2019, If it was possible to win an election by fiddling around and making one Kurmi minister and one Brahmin minister, the same government would get elected again and again and again and again. So while there is much talk about engineering and social and satisfying this group and satisfying that group, at the end of it all, what matters is performance. Whom you select, what his caste is, these are minor matters. What's really going to matter is what is the performance of the government going to be. As Meghnad Desai pointed out, the question to be asked is not, how many Kurmis and how many Brahmins and how many tribals and how many Dalits are in the cabinet. The question is, what is the overall performance? So that is where the focus has to be. It is not clear to me that these new inductees are going to significantly change the face of government or change the kind of policies that we have. If so, then, it's a five-finger exercise. It's a minor piece of politicking and has very little implications, if you ask me, on who will win the election in 2019.
Fair point. Minor piece of politicking, but politics nonetheless. Yogendra Yadav, political compulsions, caste, poll-bound states, all of that. Some people here believe this is more Amit Shah's expansion than Prime Minister Modi's.
Every assembly election is preceded by these small little games, signals being given to Uttar Pradesh, signal being given to this caste and community. Just try and recall, when was the last time you ever thought these signals were encashed? When was the last time these signals actually made any difference to the way elections are fought? So these are games politicians play internally. I don't know why. It makes no difference to the public. It makes no difference to the larger overall policy. So I really think this was a wasted opportunity. Here was an opportunity for the government to shake, to say, all right, we are at the midpoint. We don't yet have anything big to take back to our electorate. We had made huge promises. This country had really invested huge hopes on this government, and midpoint was a beautiful opportunity to say, all right, we do a mid-stock review, we change things, we come up with something new. Honestly, there's nothing new about what we have today. You could say in all fairness that Mr. Modi didn't have very much to choose from, that his talent pool is very, very limited. But then political parties cannot take shelter under the fact that they don't have very much of a talent pool. They themselves are to be blamed for lack of talent pool.
Fair point. I'm going to touch upon talent pool in just a bit, but Dilip Patgaonkar, the question is really coming your way. There was a lot of sloganeering that was done before elections of 2014, that maximum governance, minimum government. We're not seeing much of that talk being really walked, are we? This is a jumbo cabinet. It's got 78 ministers.
No, absolutely. Right from the beginning, one had hoped that there would indeed be more governance and less government. What we've seen today is just the contrary. It is more government, but is there also better governance? That is the question which haunts me. And secondly, I'm a little surprised. I would have thought that this was a good opportunity for Mr. Modi to live up to his promise of addressing aspirational India. Now, how has he done that in this cabinet expansion? I don't think so, because look at the number of women ministers in this cabinet. Look at the ages of those who've been inducted here. I believe the average age is around 60 plus something. So on both these counts, I don't know what their calculations are, but on both these counts, aspirational India has not been addressed, and therefore I go along with what's been said earlier, that this is jiggery pokery. I don't think it's going to have any kind of substantial impact on the forthcoming elections, even in the assembly ones, let alone in 2019. Why do they do it? I think they do it because the political culture within our parties hasn't really changed. They are thinking along old lines, around lines of caste combinations, regional representation, and so on and so forth. To what effect? Because it hasn't really worked always in the past, and it's unlikely to work in the future.
It's unlikely to work in the future. That's a fair point indeed. I know Meghnad Desai has a strong view on this. You were a big proponent of maximum governance, minimum government. Swami yesterday pointed out, and Mr. Padgaonkar is saying it today, that a lot needs to be still left to be desired as far as governance is concerned. Aspirational India, where are those aspirations? They haven't been met. But does this government look like a lean, mean machine that one eventually thought it would be, Mr. Lord Desai?
No, I think basically there's always a political imperative in Indian governance. We have elections every 6 months, and for every elections, all minorities, all caste groups have to be satisfied. So cabinet is not actually a working body. A cabinet is a sort of a political mela of vote banks, and so these people are not going to do any work. They're just going to swan around in swanky cars and with lal battis and just claim to be cabinet ministers. So I think, the Indian taxpayer loses out. This is not a criticism of the BJP government, criticism of all governments. They just hire cabinet ministers not to do any work, but as a sop to vote banks.
Swami, are you disappointed that there was a lot of talk about induction of lateral talent when Mr. Modi came to power? Barring Arvind Panagaria, who I wonder has how much clout in this government, there hasn't been this wooing of talent or induction of, domain experts, so to say. And even today's expansion, for that matter, leaves a lot to be desired there. The counter-argument to that is that you must leave policy making to politicians because they're the ones accountable. How do you read both sides of that statement? And do you believe Mr. Modi has chosen to play along the safe side?
Well, if you look at Modi's track record in Gujarat, he most certainly didn't induct a large number of lateral experts from outside. That is not the way he functioned. Without doubt, it was politics first. He made use of experts from time to time within the bureaucracy, but he was not very famous for including outside experts even in the bureaucracy. So clearly Narendra Modi is not a radical change man. If he didn't do that in Gujarat and the Gujarat model succeeded, he's bringing a similar kind of outlook out here. So yes, if you ask me, there is an urgent need for domain expertise in every ministry. If you ask me, I think you need to have non-IAS positions in every single ministry to bring in outside, it should be institutionalized. Otherwise, these guys get isolated in decision making. But there is no move towards administrative reform that I have seen from Modi so far. It is an area of considerable neglect, fiddling around with vote banks, fiddling around with, one Kurmi here, one Dalit here, one Brahmin here. These things do not improve governance. These things do not improve effectiveness. So I think Modi has seriously neglected the bringing in of expertise at the lateral levels. He needs to do that. I don't think the political sphere is the appropriate place to do it. You need to bring it into the bureaucracy, and it shouldn't be a personal appointment. You need to create positions within every single ministry which are permanent, and therefore it gets institutionalized.
All right, they do get institutionalized. Yogendra Yadav, you have a view on this, I know. You're disappointed that domain experts, the kind that Swami was referring to, have not been tapped, especially given the fact that this government fingers have been pointed at the deficit of talent that exists in this establishment.
The assumption is that politicians cannot be talented. I don't believe so. I think politicians can be talented. And the whole point of having political parties, the whole point of having large national political parties is that among their leaders, you have talent of various kinds. Someone comes from cooperative sector, someone has experience of 20 years of labor movement, someone comes from Dalit movement, someone from women's movement, someone from all other sectors of life, from industry, from various other things. Unfortunately, this government doesn't have that sort of talent to draw upon. And given the kind of signals this government has given vis-a-vis, say, Mr. Rajan, why would any talented person wish to come and serve this government?
Oh, that leaves a lot to be desired, and another debate for that matter. But Professor Desai, let's shift focus back to what he has done vis-a-vis what he hasn't. There's only one cabinet elevation, and that is Prakash Javadekar. Unlike what many people thought, Piyush Goyal, Dharmendra Pradhan and all of that hasn't happened. Only one promotion. What do you make of this? Professor Desai?
You see, in UK we have a limit on the number of full cabinet posts. That you can only have 22 cabinet ministers in the UK. I don't know whether a similar rule exists in India or not, but it may be that there are enough cabinet slots, which is why Prakash Javadekar has been promoted, but not Piyush Goyal. But I think Piyush Goyal is Minister of State with independent charge, so it's almost as good as being a cabinet minister. He's his own boss, and he reports directly to the Prime Minister. No, I think it's good that you don't have reshuffle for the sake of reshuffle. But I think in a sense, this is a political reshuffle, a political expansion, rather than one for efficiency.
Dilip Padgaonkar, I'm going to throw the question at your, it's one thing for us to discuss why have people not been promoted, but it's also another thing for his team to get that message. What is the large message that Mr. Modi has sent out to the rest of his team, to the other ministers of state? We all know that they could have been elevated to cabinet rank if he wanted them to, or if he wanted to send out a signal that he was happy. It looks like Prakash Javadekar is the only one who's met his expectations. The rest perhaps have to still toil a little harder?
Well, what I'd say is that this expansion or reshuffle or whatever you might want to call it is unlikely to impress those constituents in the country which stood behind Modi in the last general elections. I don't think it's going to impress, let us say, the corporate world. It's unlikely to impress youth. It's unlikely to impress the middle classes. And if I may hazard a guess, is going to create a large degree of frustration even among the colleagues of Mr. Modi in the Union cabinet. I mean, there was speculation that at least 3 of them would be promoted. That has not happened. Prakash Javdakar's elevation, and here it's pure speculation on my part, is probably to signal that the Paris agreement that was reached on climate change, that will happen because he's in charge. He was in charge of the delegation there. He had made a promise to President Obama that India would be a signatory by the end of the year and so on. But that is pure speculation on my part. But as I said, this particular reshuffle expansion is not going to impress all those who backed Mr. Modi because he had promised more governance, less government. He had promised reforms. These have not really happened. He had promised more jobs. He had promised to contain inflation. All these things have really not happened so far. And if the present situation continues, then there could be a lot of political trouble ahead, because in politics, as we've seen again and again, what matters is not the arithmetic of caste combinations and so on and so forth. What matters is the chemistry. It's the chemistry between the government that performs, chemistry between the team members of the government and the citizenry at large.
Fair point indeed. That chemistry does matter. We're running out of time here, and Swami, this question is really coming your way. He's chosen not to disturb or not to topple the apple cart as far as the top 4 are concerned. The occupants of Raisina Hill, as we choose to call them at ET now. What is the message for them? Is he happy with their performance? Finance, defense, MEA, home, is he happy with their performance? Has he chosen to play safe here?
I think we are over-analyzing this event. The idea that at this particular point of time he was going to do something very, very dramatic and shake up the whole country, I think, the anticipation was wrong. As far as I can see, Modi is an incrementalist. He believes in going bit by bit forward, and he thinks cumulatively this will work over 5 years. Now, had something's been going wrong, had some new directions been required in his particular mind as being urgently needed, then I think this might have been a bigger event and one might have expected more changes. In fact, as far as I can see, he's an incrementalist who has said, this is a very small thing, we are doing things in small steps, this is one more small step with some minor implications for Uttar Pradesh, but this is not a big issue. So as far as I am concerned, this particular event, which we had, which some of us had thought might be a big event, has really turned out to be a non-event. and there is no point reading too much into a non-event or criticizing Modi for not converting a non-event into an event. I would simply say at the end of it all, what matters is the performance. These kinds of political games, as Meghnad Desai said, hardly matter.
But Meghnad Desai, I'm bringing this to you. Swami says Modi is an incrementalist. He never thought Modi is a bold reformer. Is it finally time that we reconcile to the fact that he's not a bold politician, not a bold reformer who would radically change the architecture of the government?
I have been saying for some time that we all made a mistake of seeing him as a reformer. Narendra Modi is a moderate conservative, and who will make small changes, and he has made a number of small changes to ease of governance. People's access to the government online and the bankruptcy laws and things like that. So there are a lot of small changes done, but bold, big reforms are not his style. He is happy with the system as it is, and he will expand it, but he will not radically change it. He inherited a system from earlier days of NDA and UPA, and he'll keep the system. So I think I've been saying for some time that you have to look upon him as a moderate conservative, very direct moderate conservative, who wants to get things done, but he doesn't want to cause an upheaval or do any radical reform, because also radical reform leads to a lot of political agitation, and he doesn't need that.
All right, Swami calls him an incrementalist. Meghnad Desai calls him a moderate conservative. I don't know if Prime Minister Modi is going to be happy with this, but yes, the task has been done. The imminent cabinet reshuffle, or should we say expansion, has indeed happened, and political compulsions are quite evidently at play. We've completely run out of time here, but thank you very much, each one of you, for joining us on this edition of Modi Team 2.0.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow, and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.